Hi, beautiful neurodivergent souls. This is Robbie with Inner Powered Life. And I had a topic in mind that I was planning to do this weekend in a much more polished setting, but I just felt like I needed to do it now, so y'all get what you get. Um, we're all neurodivergent people here. We like to be comfortable. You know how it goes. So I am just going to roll with it. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is something that I have dealt with in very recent history. And I know if you've ever been in a workforce in any job, it literally doesn't matter whether you're doing retail or professional work or nonprofit, it doesn't matter. If you've been in the workplace, you've dealt with this. What we're going to talk today is about lackeys and flying monkeys and the gotcha abuse strategy. Okay, so let's get into it. So, if you are not familiar with the idea of a lackey, it's basically a person who has no conscience and will do whatever they have to do for their overlords. And they will abuse anybody. They have no integrity. They're basically just losers who are sellouts and will do anything. And we've seen this portrayed kind of like in Disney movies and stuff as like the low key minion scooting around doing stuff, or the mob informant who does stuff. And that's true, but a lot of us experience this with a person who has been put in a management position. And so, just for the fun, I'm going to read a definition of lackey. A lackey is a servile follower, toady, or obedient subordinate who obeys orders unconditionally, often to gain personal advantage. Okay. So, I'm sure many of you have dealt with managers who are like that, who would abuse and exploit everybody, were threatened by subordinates who were smarter and more skilled than they were, and had no conscience and would do whatever it took to keep their position, pandering and groveling to their overlords. Okay. So if you have dealt with a lackey supervisor, you will have experienced them wanting you to do ridiculous things or beyond your job description, or not letting you have a lunch break, or you can't take a vacation or time off, or they argue with you about absolutely everything, and everything's a drama and a throwdown, and they're threatened about you being more skilled. They're threatened if you bring up any justice related things or following the rules. In really toxic places, it can be a problem with like legalities and like basic moral human ethics. Um, they don't care. They don't care because they have no moral compass. They're sellouts, they have no conscience, and they will do whatever they have to do to please their overlords, who obviously generally have even less of a moral compass than they do, right? So you're dealing with a hierarchy of very not good people. All right. With the lackeys in a toxic organization, because toxic organizations set up this hierarchy of lackeys. Okay, so you have some overlord of whatever, and then it kind of trickles out. Underneath this are all the other victims of this situation who are either silent victims or they become flying monkeys. And if you're familiar with narcissistic abuse terminology that's commonly thrown out, the flying monkeys are the people who support or who support the narcissist. And this comes from the Wizard of Oz imagery of the witch sitting on the flying monkeys and looking. This happens in family dynamics or social groups and other kinds of places, but it also very commonly happens in workplaces because people are afraid to stand up against the loser lackey who's almost always a bully, and their overlords who are always bullies. Um, they're afraid to do it, and if you mistakenly put your trust in coworkers in toxic organizations who you think are your friends, they may like you, like they may have nothing against you, but if their livelihood is on the line, they could throw you under the bus and become a flying monkey as a part of self-preservation. Okay, so flying monkeys defend the abusers. They go around spying. They can be part of the drama. Um, Dealing with them is just super not cool, and it's a huge betrayal, particularly if you think the person is your friend, or you think they're good people who have a moral compass or something like that. And for neurodivergent people, this is an easy trap for us to fall into because we think that people who are nice are good people and they like us and they're going to be honest and follow the rules and have a strong sense of justice just like we do, which is not always the case. And a lot of times it's not the case whatsoever at all. So you have to be super, super, super careful about assuming that your work friends are actually friends who are not going to be flying monkeys and who aren't going to pander to the lackey who is serving the evil overlords. So with this kind of toxic system, you can run into that gotcha strategy. And I've encountered that recently in a place. And you can't find this place if you research my professional history. You're not going to see this in any of my stuff. It's not listed. So anything you see is not, you can't pin to this because you're not going to find it. Okay. I purposely am not connected to this organization in any public way. Right. So, and that's just because it's not part of my identity and I don't care and they don't show up in my stuff until I'm done. Okay. So with the gotcha strategy, which is a huge, huge tactic of narcissistic abuse, is to set traps for people to try to in either an actual mistake on purpose or a completely unintentional mistake or a trap literally set up for you to walk in to make it look like you made a mistake. So and with this, there's usually a lot of like triangulation and a bunch of other stuff going on, right? So they will be talking junk about you here and talking about junk about another person to you over here, and they're doing all these things to get people pitted against each other to keep their power. And triangulation is like a cornerstone of narcissistic abuse behavior. They have to do that to keep their power going. They have to keep everybody against everybody else. And then they have the ego trip of, oh, we're puppeting what's going on here. And it diverts, for a while, blame from them to other people. So they see it as a form of protection for them. However, with narcissists, in any, whether it's a social group, family, marriage or romantic dynamics or workplace dynamics, it always comes out. Like people are going to actually figure out what's ultimately happening, but it's very, very hard when you're dealing with it in the moment because it's your word against this person's word against this, and they're working this and they're doing all of these kind of things, and it's super toxic. It's super stressful. And for neurodivergent people, we want to get along with people. We want justice for everybody. We want to follow the rules. We want things to be right. We want things to be honest. We want to do a good job. We want to give supporting details and help other people do their jobs and help do things and be a team player and do all these things. When you're dealing with a lackey who has no integrity, no conscience, doesn't care, they are threatened because they're usually or actually not even that competent. And so they're threatened by everybody and everything, and they're just worried about their position. Doing all these things, keeping drama and churn and mess stirred up all of the time. It's so incredibly stressful. For the neurodivergent brain who wants justice and honesty and everybody doing a good job and people following the rules and things making sense, this is just such a nightmare. It's so hard mentally and emotionally and physically. It's just very, very, very hard. And so, what do you do when you find yourself in the dynamics of a lackey who is your supervisor, or maybe even several other layers, and you're dealing with coworkers who are flying monkeys, and the whole thing is so toxic. What do you do? Okay. The first impulse as a neurodivergent person might be to go and be like, hey, um, you did this thing or so and so did this thing and it was wrong and it's not legal and it's not fair. Okay, okay. No, is it beautiful that you want to do that? Yes, yes, and it shows your good heart. However, the lackey does not operate that way. They do not care. They have no conscience. They have no integrity. They don't care about the rules unless they manipulate the rules to benefit them and not you or other people. Okay. Confronting them about the rules is not going to change their behavior. It will make you a target. It will make anybody else you mention a target. Now, you can do this if you really feel this moral imperative to confront them, but understand more than likely they're not going to have some miraculous change and everything's going to be great. They will deflect, blame you, retaliate. You could lose your job. They could retaliate against other people. There could be all these other things. So just be aware if you do this, your integrity and your good heart is not necessarily going to follow through to them, and they're not going to miraculously change into this beautiful, moral, honest, just person. Okay. There's probably going to be pushback because you're threatening their power and what could be their financial livelihood. They're not going to deal with it. Okay. So you do what you felt you need to do, but understand that your good intentions are not necessarily going to translate into optimal outcomes in reality. Okay. So you're like, okay, what can I do? If you are in a toxic workplace with a lackey supervisor who triangulates, the best thing you can do is first minimize oral communication with people, which means if you catch somebody, you're like, hey, blah, 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 blah. Great. If you need to do that, if it's super toxic, document it. Send them an email, send them an internal chat message documenting, hey, I told you blah, 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 blah. Because they can go tell somebody else, oh, she said or he said, so blah, 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 which is not what you said whatsoever at all. Okay. Triangulating and causing problems, and it doesn't fix whatever the original legitimate business issue is. They're just causing drama. Okay. Document it. Cover yourself and make sure you do your job to the very best of your ability. And as an autistic person, more than likely, you're gonna 100% try to do that and document things. Ask for clarification, for directions in writing. And if you're dealing with a narcissistic abuser, neurotypical, especially neurotypical narcissistic abuser supervisor, they're gonna push back with you against this and not want to document it. And are you stupid? How do you not understand? Whatever kind of way they do. But the more you can get documented, the easier it is for you to defend yourself because they can't come back later and say they didn't say it. Unless, of course, they have a backdoor to your IT stuff and they can delete your stuff, which is why it's super helpful. If you're in a super toxic place, first of all, you should be trying to get out of there if you possibly can. The other is saving backup copies somewhere of all these things that other people can't find. If you have to do that to begin with, you're in a vile place. Start trying to do something else, but as a last ditch effort survival thing, do that. The other thing you can do if you can't document it is have conversations in front of other people. Now, if you're surrounded by a bunch of flying monkeys who defend the system, it is what it is. Again, in a place that bad, you just got to go as soon as you can. But if you can have other people present for the conversations where you ask for direction or you state clearly what has happened or what you're doing, and there's more people, it's harder for a lackey, narcissist, and the flying monkeys to deny it the more witnesses there are. Of course, you want to be professional and you want to be courteous in the way that you express all this, not like attacking people or kind of way, like be smart about it. but basically cover yourself in as many ways as you possibly can. The other thing is don't go talk to your coworkers about how whoever did whatever kind of a thing. Because even if they're your friend now, if stuff starts shaking down, they can turn on you in an instant to protect their jobs. And you, as a neurodivergent person, you may not see this coming because you're like, this is my friend and we had the same thing and we're on the same page. No, no, okay. Just be smart and be careful who you talk to about what and document everything and have as many people present for things as you can and be as nice as you can, even if it requires you to be high masking for a time to protect yourself. Not that I love high masking or telling you need to do this, but sometimes it can be a smart thing to do. Okay. So be aware of that. Be aware of the where they monitor your stuff and they will twist it and they'll monitor what you do and when you do it and how you do it in your communication. So document what you do what you do to the very, very best of your ability. And this is the best way to deal with this situation. If you're in a situation this severe, start trying to find a way to go somewhere else. But this is common in workplaces. So even if you go somewhere else, it doesn't mean you're not going to run into it again. So the best thing to do is understand skills of dealing with this to begin with, and also having strategies for moving on if it's really compromising your mental or emotional or physical or spiritual health, because it's not worth it. And in the end, honestly, when something becomes that stressful and that toxic, for neurodivergent people, we either like just completely shut down, like we can't anymore, or the system is against us and we end up having, being transitioned to another position regardless. So just be aware and understand. It's easy for us to be gaslighted by abusers. If somebody is lying, if somebody expresses to you that they're targeting or trying to trap or gotcha another coworker and wanting to draw you to gossip about them, no, no. There's a difference in saying there's a legit problem, let's work through this, and engaging in triangulation and gossip. And you can feel this even as neurodivergent people with our different perceptions. You can feel if there's like a kind of thing about it, right? So if you feel like you're being drawn into gossip and triangulation, or somebody expresses to you that they're trying to trap somebody else, okay, you don't want to be involved in that for a lot of reasons, and realize if they do it to another person, they can do it to you. And my philosophy is if somebody's actually doing something wrong, like they're morally wrong, or they're like really slacking on their job, or there's some kind of way it's going to catch up to them to begin with. Like you don't have to be involved in trapping. And the other thing, a lackey is never a leader. It doesn't matter if they're the senior, the director of the such and such or whatever. Lackeys are not leaders. Lackeys get their position by pandering to people who are more abusive than they are and exploiting and abusing the people under them. Leaders do not do any of the things I just talked to you about. Ever. Leaders stand up for their people. Leaders have integrity. Leaders have a moral compass. Leaders want to get things done right. Leaders are transparent in their communication. They make sure that everybody understands what's going on and what's on the same page, and they ask for feedback. There's never, ever a gotcha and a triangulation and a running around talking about so-and-so in this way and this kind of, no, no. Leaders are never lackeys. Your friends are never flying monkeys. And if they've been a flying monkey about one thing with somebody else, do not be deceived thinking they won't do the same thing with you. Okay? It's just the way it goes. And it's hard because a lot of us want to be right and we want to think the best of people and we don't want drama and trauma and we want justice. And the fact of the matter is the rest of the world is not really like that, and it's particularly so. And it's this way in workplaces. And it doesn't matter if it's a nonprofit or it's a spiritual organization or religious organization or some other organization that's for the greater good or whatever kind of thing. Okay. There's still people just as vile in all of these organizations, and sometimes even worse, because the mission of the organization gives them a good cover to be vile on the down low, and people will be less likely to call them out. So be on your guard. Don't be paranoid. Don't be looking for a thing under every rock, but be aware if something feels wrong and they're abusing you and they're abusing other people and they're trying to get you in gossip and they're doing this kind of a way. They're not a leader. They're a lackey. If they're trying to draw you to gossip with other people or defending people that everybody knows is an abuser, they're a flying monkey. If they're looking for how they can trap people in this kind of, it's a gotcha strategy, which is an abuse strategy. Do not engage with that. Cover yourself, document everything to the very best of your ability. Be silent unless you have to talk. And the Bible talks about how there's wisdom in fewer words, and there's a reason for that. Okay. So yes, advocate for justice, stand up for yourself, do what you can, but realize your sense of justice and morality and goodness and wanting to be a team player and help other people does not necessarily translate to the rest of the organization. And your advocacy doesn't mean that anybody else is going to change. Okay, so you do this if you feel like you need to, but don't be naive enough to think that if I'm like, people are going to change, because they probably won't. It's probably been a theme of the organization forever, or at least with the current structure. Help when you can, advocate when you can, take care of yourself. Understand you do not have to be a victim at all. If you find yourself going into a place where every day thinking about going there, you're like, and I've been there, trust me. Nervous system regulation, breathing, doing tapping, and I'm going to do like actually a video and offer a module about tapping to regulate nervous system. Can be helpful if you're a person of faith, praying to your higher power and just understanding you don't have to stay stuck. What you're seeing right now is what's happening right now. It doesn't have to be your reality forever going forward. Anyway, this has been kind of long. So I love you. I believe in you and your potential. You are a human being made in the image of the Most High God for a purpose right now, for this time that you're at, regardless of what anybody has said or done to you or what you're feeling now. There is more for you. I believe in you. I support you. If you want to work with another neurodivergent person who's been through all kinds of mess, you can contact me in any of the links below. I would love to support you and work with you. And I will catch you another time soon. Bye.